3 years ago, my girlfriend was moving from North Carolina down to Texas. Now, this was, of course, pre-COVID. And she was sending me all of the documentation about not getting her children vaccinated. She's from North Carolina, moving out to Salina. And during that time, before it was pre-COVID days, it was normal. Mm-hmm. It seemed like it was an absolute normal thing to do, is that parents did not want to vaccinate their children. They had no issues. And then when the COVID hit, which is something people don't like to talk about, vaccines became the forefront of the conversation. And I heard you say that we endured 2.5 years of medical overreach. And it seems like we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about vaccines. It's almost like a word, and I've heard this on podcasts before, it's something they don't want us to talk about. It's a bad word. They've made it a bad word. They've used vaccine to scare the snot out of people, to weaponize it. And just before, it was just, for me as a mom, I'm not anti-vax whatsoever. My children were vaccinated as children. I thought, and that was normal, because you go to your pediatrician, you have trust in them. But we've endured 2 years of complete tyrannical medical overreach by this government, and it's really put the COVID vaccines have put a strain on so many people's lives. People have lost their jobs. Some children couldn't go to school. Companies had to close. The mandates were just out of control. So let's talk about the COVID vaccine. Let's just get that conversation out of the way, because this isn't a conversation I've never had with anybody. When we're really jumping into vaccines, I've never done it. I was just advised, this is great for your kids, let's do it. But since it's so controversial now, and it's stupid to even have to say that a vaccine's controversial, but that's where we are, and I've learned a lot. And I do believe that, so even though it was a rough 2 years, I think it's brought a lot of attention and made people start asking questions that they never thought, like me. I never thought I would have to look into vaccinations, but now I am, and I think other people are doing so now. So it's been actually worked out for some good.
I completely agree. The issues that this fast-tracked nature of this COVID vaccine has really shined a light on all of the issues that Texans for Vaccine Choice has been kind of yelling from the mountaintops for many, many years. And these are issues such as, right now, these vaccines are under the emergency use authorization. There are 2 that have received the full FDA approval, but those, to my knowledge, are still not even in wide distribution at all in America. So we're still providing these EUA vaccines, and by nature, the EUA was meant to be a very temporary, short-lived medical product. And here we are nearly 2 years later, and it's still being pushed. Just this week, Pfizer's asking for another EUA for their new bivalent COVID vaccine. So they're doubling, if not tripling down on the EUA, this fast-tracked warp speed nature.
Okay, you raise a question, because I think that's what did it for a lot of people. I don't think parents or people feel like if it's good for them, they're going to take it. I think what raised a lot of questions, like you said, I know they like to use the word warp speed because it was, vaccinations were produced the fastest in history. Typically, what raised a lot of red flags for people was the lack of documentation that they had on the vaccines, but also these vaccines were created and issued within, 6 months? And it takes 7 years, isn't it?
At least the typical testing that goes on with a childhood vaccine is around 7 to 10 years, so that they can test for safety, test for efficacy, test for long-term red flags that come up. And with this warp speed thing, what we are seeing is that, by the very definition of warp speed, there are 0 long-term safety studies, 0. This is the most massive scale human experiment that we are experiencing right now on the planet.